All right, cool. So for this episode, we're going to be talking through how to generate call prep notes before the meeting using Copy.AI. So essentially, the team here at Pavilion, they run anywhere from 4 to even 10, 15 calls a day with prospective Pavilion members. It's a lot of volume, and oftentimes they don't have the time between meetings to adequately prep and go to their LinkedIn and kind of figure out like what the best way to pitch Pavilion is to these people. So what we are going to be doing is walking through how, by working with Brian and learning Copy.AI, we're able to actually generate amazing call prep notes that not just share who that person is and what they do, but also how they would be a good fit as a member of Pavilion. And I think that connection point at the end is like really important. So I'm going to go and just share the initial result, or I guess like an example of what this looks like. All right, cool. So every morning at 7:15 a.m., they get a lowdown on all the calls that they have for the day. This is just an example that I pulled in. Test is my name, but it actually is me. What's really cool about this is we pull in, we essentially scrape the LinkedIn profile and the company in order to pull in the background, the experience that they have, how they heard about Pavilion. So we take HubSpot data and pull that into Copy.AI to understand how they heard about Pavilion, any recent marketing email that they had, any website pages that they visited. And in this case, I visited a lot of web pages. So it really helps the rep get a holistic understanding of everything that that prospect did before jumping on a call with the rep. So it's really effective at just giving that holistic view. And then of course that last piece here, like potential benefits of joining Pavilion. So if you're running meetings, if you're running demos, this use case is really effective, and the team has given us really good feedback. And I don't know, the more I kind of go through AI, Brian, and like AI is like a buzzword, but like the more I think about AI is I realize it can be like an incredible sales enablement lever that I think a lot of companies are going like 50 steps ahead and thinking, how do I mass send these emails using AI? But in reality, like some of the best use cases for AI are in the simple things like this, you know?
Yeah. So talking about what I've seen top performing, BDR, SDR, and AEs do before a call, they're typically going to jump in. They're going to check out that LinkedIn profile. Maybe they'll Google YouTube, see if that person has done a talk of some kind. They're going to visit the company site. And generally, they're looking at both the individual and the company that they're in to get that context. What I love about the way that you frame this with Copy AI is that you've brought in not just the publicly available signals, but also the internal signals that you've decided as a marketing team really matter, and had the AI synthesize that into kind of a recap. And even in, using these jump off links that you've also included, which I think is really smart, what this can do is just give a headset, give a kind of a heads up display on the meeting that I'm about to have, help me know what points to go look for, so that as I'm cruising through those data sources, I can drill down more into specific areas that could really make sense based on what they're investigating that we know from the marketing data and what we can see from the AI's callouts in the profile. So a really great example of how to use AI strategically to add a ton of value and, really offer, a hit of a ton of insight in just a few minutes of time.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for this. And there's so many use cases that go beyond this, like after the call, which is the next build in public. So be on the lookout for that. Uh, let's go ahead and just jump into the actual workflow now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah, classic build in public, how we actually do this.
How we actually do it. So I'll start from the beginning. If you're using HubSpot, this is the workflow to clone. Um, Basically, I'm looking for an event. The event is the meeting booked, and then is the meeting host any of my sales reps, Colin, Marshawn, and I'm Josh. And then from there, we want to wait until the date of the meeting, and you can pull that field in by using date of last meeting booked That is basically the most recent meeting that gets booked. So you know it's very unlikely that somebody will book multiple meetings. So I wouldn't consider this an issue. If you really are concerned about it, you could log the date of the demo um, when it gets booked as a custom property at the contact level. But for our use case, this works really well. So you'll see there's 8 contacts in action right now. So we're waiting until the day that they have the meeting booked. And then based upon, cool. So based upon if the meeting was booked, if the meeting was booked the same day, so if the meeting got booked at, let's just say, at 9 o'clock a.m. for 3 p.m. later in the day, we are going to essentially fast track it through directly into this workflow or webhook. We're going to push all that data into a webhook, which is read by Zapier, and I'll walk through that. But if it's essentially done before this 7:15 time delay or 7:30 a.m. time delay, it's going to just fire at 7:30 a.m. So the reason for this provision, this branch, is basically in the event that the date is in the same day of the meeting getting booked, it just basically fast tracks them into receiving the call prep notes in real time. So that's just an important provision you're going to want to make here. So if you do want to send them all at once at 7:15 a.m., like I'm doing, for anything that gets booked after 7:15 a.m., you're just going to want to make sure that they get fast tracked and get the call prep notes as soon as the call gets booked that day.
Yeah, and this is a great workflow because you're really laying the framework on timing, especially for larger sales teams or team members who have a lot of booked meetings. You know, maybe getting all 15 meeting book prep in Slack in the morning isn't the most ideal. I've experimented a ton in terms of delivering these automated AI updates and preps to team members actually closer to the meeting. I know that for myself that tends to work out really well because my calendar is so fluid.
Yeah.
So what I love about this architecture is you've got a really clear, easy first step here. Hook up this wireframe. You're going to get those call prep notes into everybody. And at the start, that's probably a huge win that you can tick the box on for you RevOps geeks out there. You can evolve this a little bit further to actually have those call prep notes hit in the time cycle that your reps typically spend. I know some reps like to do their prep in the morning all in one go, but many reps that I have worked with will typically, grab just 10 minutes before the call as much information as they can get, and getting those call prep notes to them like an hour before the meeting can flow a little bit more easily into that kind of a daily rhythm.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you want to build for that use case that you're referring to, you would just change the delay and the delay type to be basically T minus 10 minutes or T minus 20 minutes of that date property, which is the data last meeting booked. I believe that is a date time property, so you should be able to pull off time from that and do and subtract maybe 10 minutes from that, and then run the workflow. But if not, you would want to use, like I mentioned earlier, maybe a custom field to log the date and time of the upcoming meeting. But all that to say, we go through this flow and we send it to a webhook, and that webhook is a Zapier webhook. So we're receiving all this data. So we're catching this webhook and all the data. We are then running a workflow in Copy.AI. And one thing I do want to note about the webhook structure that we're sending over is I'm including not just data on the prospect, but I'm also including data on, I'm including all contact properties, including the last marketing email that was sent, including how they heard about Pavilion, etc. But if you want to just include a few properties, you can just customize the request body and add a property here. And you can have it a lot cleaner. We have a lot of properties in our system, so to be frank, building this out in Zapier was a bit of a pain because of how many properties we had, but I wanted to make sure I had full coverage. But all that to say, we then catch the webhook and then we run the workflow in Copy.AI, and we'll walk through the workflow in a second. But We run this workflow. So we have the workflow is LinkedIn's company summary is the name of the workflow. We pull in all the data into that workflow in Copy.AI, including how did you hear about Pavilion, the pages that they visited, and then the last marketing email that they received. That gives us that holistic view of the prospect in order for us to activate the workflow and have it be really personalized and have the response be really personalized based upon what the prospect did. So from there, I'm just pathing based upon if it's Colin, who's one of our sales reps, or Marshawn. And the reason for this is it's sending them a direct message in Slack independently, not just in some group channel. So if you wanted to just send all the call prep notes in one place, you could do that. But in this case, I just separate out the rep. I format the date and time of the call that I get, which is the last meeting booked. That gets returned as I think just like epoch time. So you're just going to want to convert that into something that's a little bit more human readable. So when you do send that Slack message and give information about the upcoming call, it pulls in a nice friendly date field. So here I'm sending my rep Colin Tobler the call prep notes. So I'm including anything relevant that I feel like is important, and we feel like it's important for Colin to know. So we've got their name, what their seniority is, their function, and then we also have, of course, the prep notes that you saw earlier that were pretty robust. And that's just output generate text is the response from Copy.AI. So effectively, the way this works is Copy.AI will not continue will essentially not allow that person to continue through the Zap until there is a response. So it basically stays in that Copy.AI step until the workflow is running Copy.AI, and then it continues it in Zapier. So you'll get a response here, and that's why right now it just says data generate text. And then I just, add a little embellishment here, view in HubSpot, view on LinkedIn. So here's a little hack for you. If you want to have a link to view in HubSpot, you can just take a contact record link, paste it here, delete the last few digits, which is the ID, and just drop the ID here. And then it'll allow the rep to just click to view them in HubSpot. And then you can view in LinkedIn just to allow the rep to explore their LinkedIn profile as well. And then I send one to me as well, just so I can QA. So that's the Zapier workflow. Now's the fun part. How did we actually get it to be so darn personalized and actionable for the rep? And that's all done through Copy.AI. So let's jump right into Copy.AI and have some fun here. And that workflow is called LinkedIn Company Summary. So we're going to jump right into that workflow and walk through it. This is the fun part. And if you want to see some work that we did in Copy.AI before to personalize outbound sales emails, go and check out the last two episodes for our Build in Public. The link is in the description below. So this workflow takes in from Zapier those fields right here. So if we remember, the Zapier was pulling in a webhook from HubSpot, and in that webhook, we're getting the LinkedIn URLs, and then we're passing that in Zapier into Copy.AI. So we have all that here. So this is our input. We're going to then scrape.
I'll pause you on the input here for a second. So everyone probably noticed in Zapier that there were the 4 inputs for the Copy.AI step in the Zap, and that's where they come from. They come from this input. So you'll be configuring your Copy.AI workflow first and then connecting it to your Zap, and that's how you'll know which inputs you're populating.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Cool. And then we scrape the profile. And what's really cool is I actually, when Brian and I went to build this, we actually built this without doing any of the plus we didn't actually build it from scratch. We literally had Copy.AI build it for us. And that's because Copy.AI does this really cool thing where you can just describe the workflow that you want to accomplish, and it literally generates it for you. So that's one thing I really love about Copy.AI is literally you could just type in what you want, and it generates a pretty good first take of the workflow that you can then further enhance. Cool. So we're scraping the person's profile. We're pulling in the LinkedIn profile URL. Then we're extracting the company URL from that person's profile. And again, like because Copy.AI built this workflow for us, all this magic over here, a lot of the prompting here was was already done for me. And that's just like an incredible functionality of this tool. So it scrapes the person's LinkedIn profile, um, extract the LinkedIn page of the current company the person works for from the LinkedIn profile scrape and return it uh, just the company's LinkedIn URL, nothing else. Your job is to extract information from the given context, only output what is expected, nothing else. So basically, in this step, Copy.AI is setting it so the only thing that we are pulling is the company LinkedIn URL to do the company details of this Slack message that we want to send, because we want to not just share information about the person, but we also want to share information about the person's company. So the best way to do that is let's scrape the person. Let's take their most recent company and go to their profile and then just store that specific company. Then we're going to scrape that person's profile or the company's profile in this step. And then we're going to generate the text. So this is the fun part. The job details, how they heard about Pavilion, the web pages they visited, the last marketing email they received, the company profile, all that good stuff. And we're asking it to write some call prep notes. And this is where I did a lot of the prompt engineering work, Brian, is on this section. It took a lot of kind of finagling to get it right. But I think it's now at a pretty solid spot.
Yeah, would love to call out a couple of things here. So, building on what we learned from our last episode, one is that giving the AI more information has actually really worked for the use cases that we've been doing. Sometimes you want to take a scraped LinkedIn profile and narrow it down to a few select elements. But in this case, the call prep notes are really looking for points of connection between the LinkedIn data, the company profile data, and the HubSpot data that we are going to provide to it. So actually providing it a pretty broad lens works pretty well. There's a couple things about this prompt that I really like. So, would love to zero in on that, prompt sentence that you got right there, write call prep notes using their job details. One of the things that you can see here is that the labels applied to each of the inputs are being referenced in this sentence. So the prompt is really direct. The task I want you to do is write a call prep note using their job details, how they heard about Pavilion, the last marketing email they received, the pages they visited, and the LinkedIn company profile. The notes should help the sales rep have an effective call with all the context the sales rep needs to convince this person to join the Pavilion community. We've learned that being really explicit about what the task is seeking to accomplish matters in terms of the AI giving the framing to the content that is helpful. So I think that, really great. The other thing that I'm noticing here that we're building on from last episode is our prompt is relatively short, 2 sentences, but the background is really where you did a lot of work in the design. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about your journey in crafting the background prompt.
Yeah, so probably one of the most trickiest things I've done in Copy.AI in a bit, or ever since I started using it a few weeks ago, is how do I get this desired output in a structured way for the rep? And what I found is it sounds kind of weird to say, but I had to like instruct the AI to like we mentioned in our previous episode that like they're like an employee or like they're an intern or somebody that you're instructing directly to do this. So this is like what I love about the work that we've done in prompt engineering is we figured out that we need to be really direct with Copy.AI and the prompt work that we're doing to about what that person's role is. You're an experienced sales enablement specialist who writes excellent call prep notes to help sales reps have productive sales calls with professionals who are interested in joining the Pavilion community. It's incredibly specific, but Brian, I know we've been through this path before, but using that that phrase experienced sales enablement specialist really did the trick here because essentially I think Copy.AI or the model that this is based off of is like, okay, sales enablement. right, that person needs to be really good at like organizing information and presenting it in a way that's really actionable for the reps. So that definitely helped as like an enhancement.
Yeah, building on this, this is sometimes referred to as prompt escalation. So if I want AI to do a really great job for me, I might say something like, "You're a Nobel Prize, winning journalist, and you're going to write a summary about this particular, news item from a company." That summary is going to be much better than even just you're a journalist. So, one of the things we'd encourage you to do, those of you that are getting into more of the prompt engineering side of this, is um, be verbose, escalate. Think like you're from the Valley in California. Just everything's awesome and amazing and over the top. Exaggerate what you're looking for, especially in the design of the role, because the way LLMs work is they're using the role that you give it to sort of find relevance in terms of how they're going to talk with you. That's, I think, the best way to think about the LLM. You're giving it a sense of relevance. So I don't want, if I'm going to ask it a medical question, I'm not just going to say you're a doctor. I'm going to say you're a doctor at a Mayo Clinic who spent.
I think I lost you, Brian.
Oh, I had my mute on this whole time. Sorry about that, bud. I
Oh, you're
will I will recast there. All right, so let me take it from the top. And do you need to grab some water? I noticed you had a tickle in your throat there. You
no,
good?
I just took a sip, so we're good.
Okay. All right. Solid. All right. So here we go. Take two.
I'm looking at the sound waves in the
Right. All right. So what I love about this is what's sometimes called in the industry prompt escalation. So we're not just saying, "Hey, you're a sales enablement specialist," or "You're an SDR." You're an experienced sales enablement specialist. I like to joke that if I'm going to have AI write a news story for me, I'm going to say something like, "You're a Nobel Prize winning journalist who specializes in stories like X, Y, or Z, and I want you to go write that story with X, Y, or Z in it." And that's what you've done here. So for those of you that are playing around with prompt engineering, definitely encourage you to think like a kid from the Valley, escalate. Everything's awesome, everything's amazing. Be over the top, exaggerate, and see where that gets you. What's happening in the model is that by really hyping the expert role, you're actually narrowing the relevance that the LLM model is going to use in generating text. So it's going to use text that's more likely to come from someone who has self-identified in the training data as an expert. And that generally works out really well.
Yeah, the other thing that I learned is saying these saying this line right here, you care about like what you care about. So like when you create this call prep notes, originally it was either being like really, really verbose and like tons of different information all in like like it was like kind of a mess at first. Until I started making it a little bit more pointed about what the model should be caring about. So you care about their job history, you care about how they heard about Pavilion, you care about the most recent marketing email received. So I basically reiterated what we had at the top here on the prompt and set the background to almost mimic that prompt to some extent. And then, of course, the instructions here generate call prep notes to help the sales rep understand why this prospect is a good fit for the Pavilion. And then I even repeated the same thing I had above because I noticed when I didn't do that, I was getting the results that wasn't quite there. So to your point, specificity is king here, and so being specific really helped here. And then the important part for me is the user experience from the sales rep side is what's it going to look like when it lands in Slack. Um, Follow this structure. Please break out each section so it's manageable. So again, specificity, 4 to 5 bullets summarizing their background, 1 to 3 bullets about their company, 1 bullet about how they heard about Pavilion, because that is a single field. It's open text, so we just need 1 bullet. And then 2 to 4 bullets on the last marketing email they received and the web pages that they visited. And the important context here is that it actually ends up providing like recommendations or even guesses based on the last marketing email that they received. So in the example that I'll give is, let's just say the last marketing email was for our upcoming go-to-market summit in London. Well, the title of that email in HubSpot under the property that's everybody has in their HubSpot instance is last marketing email name or something like that. it actually looked and saw that it said like GTM, go to market, EMEA #1 or something like that. And he was able to figure out on a recent call prep note that that was for an event, go to market EMEA event, and says implies that this person may be interested in the go to market summit in EMEA. And I was like, wow, that is incredible. So it even took the data we were passing it in from HubSpot and just did more work to like extrapolate what that actually meant in terms of what the email was and the web pages they visited. Like if they visited pricing, it was in one example it was like this person maybe this person has been exposed to pricing already. Like it's really really smart, and I think part of that has to do with how we prompted it, telling it that it's a sales enablement specialist. And so, yeah, really, really appreciate that. And then, of course, the last is 1 to 2 bullets recommending how Pavilion membership could benefit them. So if you're running demos, just, be like recommending how Salesforce CRM could benefit them based on their LinkedIn profile. So really, really cool stuff. And now I think we're just going to do this live, which is the fun part. So I'm literally going to book a meeting using my buddy's email, and we're gonna instantly get a response. Let's do it. I love it. So the booking's confirmed. We booked, and now we're just waiting. So you'll notice right now that we're just in the wait step right now, and typically this happens when Copy.AI is doing its magic. So it's running this workflow right now. Sent one new workflow run to Copy.AI, and now we wait.
So from a process setup, this is one of the things, again, for you RevOps geeks out there, this is one of the reasons where, as much as you can, generate AI outputs as soon as you have all the inputs you need, and then provide those outputs to the end user when it makes the most sense for them. So if you try to take all the inputs in and run it through AI and deliver it to the user at the moment that they need it, there's often going to be a delay. Now, it's not typically very significant, maybe as much as 10 minutes. But from a systems engineering perspective, much easier to queue up all of your inputs, have the AI run the outputs, log those outputs, and then ship and deliver. And of course, you can use Zap's delays, just like Josh has done here, to have it be delivered when it's ready. We're, of course, doing this in real time, so we're experiencing that delay together with you.
Love it. Cool. So it really only took I got this message at 5:10. It's 5:11 now. So
Yeah, 5 minutes.
in that preamble that you had before the Slack, I mean, it's happening right now. So I love it. So you'll see here that pulled in everything appropriately. May 16th at 2:45 is when we booked the call, or it's 5:45. But I
Are
did it.
you showing your Slack screen?
It should have been.
I am seeing the Zap. I'm seeing a zoomed in view of the Zapier
Oh my
window
God.
right now.
Boo. It shared the window and not the.
Right.
Cool. That's okay. That's why we have edits. Stop. Share. Screen. Screen two. Cool. So we got the response here. And it took all of, I'd say probably like 30 seconds total for that workflow to run. And we got Matt Miner here. Call prep is for, I booked it for 5:45, but it got converted to my time zone because I'm a nerd and converted it to time zone in Zapier. I didn't touch on that. But you'll see here that we have what Matt does, his background, his experience, what he's skilled at developing. Previously led marketing at companies like Qualify, Hatch, and Cobb. Holds a bachelor's degree from Virginia Tech, so that's pretty cool. Could add that like little personalization, go Hokies or whatever. And then company details, which I think is really cool, that it was able to scrape Directus and then actually pull in the number of employees, which in our case is really helpful because we sell corporate memberships, and typically companies that sign up for corporate memberships have over 25 employees. It's a good fit for them, so this could be a good opportunity to introduce that as an option because they have 50 employees. How they heard about Pavilion through their friend Josh Carter, who works at Pavilion. What happened recently? Here's a recent marketing email. Received this Elevate Ops invite email.
Shout out to Elevate Ops next week, where we're going to be giving a presentation on all of this.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm excited. So if you're watching this after the 23rd then of May 2024, go go to joinpavilion.com, click events, and go watch the recording of Elevate Ops where we talk through how we're optimizing SDR workflows using Copy.AI. It's going to be awesome. And then visited the joinpavilion.com website, no specific page mentioned. So in this case, probably just visited the homepage and then went straight to the sign up. But this is what's really cool here. How Pavilion could benefit them. As a demand gen and marketing leader, Matt could benefit from Pavilion's community of go-to-market experts to gain insight strategies, best practices for driving through effective marketing and demand gen initiatives. The community could provide valuable peer connections and learning opportunities. Pavilion's resources and network to help Matt level up his marketing skills and leadership abilities. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit generic, but it gave me the context that I needed on like that Matt's a demand gen person. Here's how the community could impact him, trends, tools, and tactics in the rapidly evolving marketing landscape. So it provided that connection point. And what's really, really cool about this copy is it could even be used as follow-up. So for example, if the rep was had a chat with Matt and wanted to kind of summarize the value of Pavilion in the community, he could just copy these bullet points, edit them to his liking, and then go from there. But on the next Build in Public episode, we're going to be sharing how we can actually do call summary in the same type of way, where you run the call, you get the call recording, you get the bullet points from the call, and then you take that and turn it into a really solid post-call summary plus post-call follow-up email. So that's what I'm excited for the next Build in Public, where we kind of like tie the whole loop or connect the loop there related to calls. So, I mean, I love this. It's been effective for the team. The View in HubSpot link is just like a nice touch. And candidly, it's really easy to set up. And a lot of companies aren't doing this because every time I've introduced it, people are like, oh my God, you can link out. It's not native. It's not the native integration. It's like, yeah, it's really not a big deal here. So definitely encourage you to create that context for the rep. But this was fun all through Copy.AI. And next episode, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about call recording. And one thing that I brought up when I was talking to Brian is some challenges that we had around call recording. And I know a lot of sales leaders have had this challenge of how uncomfortable it can sometimes be to have something like a gong or another tool like that to come into the meeting and have that prospect potentially feel uncomfortable about that. Brian effectively talked me off of a ledge on that because I was like, oh my gosh, should we be recording our calls? Like we've had some bad feedback from people being like, can you just kick that thing out? And we're going to talk about this next episode, but we've got a solid solution here.
Yeah. The good news is, I've been doing call recording for almost as long as it's been around. I used Zoom in the very first year that it came out. And so have gotten to experience these challenges and trepidations around call recordings. We'll get it covered in the next episode, but the short version is that it's perfectly normal as you're beginning to scale that these kinds of concerns come up. Okay, if we're going to rely on AI to do these kinds of things for us, will we get permission for the inputs that we need? In the next episode's case, it's going to be call recording. In this case, thankfully, we've got LinkedIn. We've got lots of public sources that people have already kind of put themselves out there on that we can work with. But questions come up as well of like, is it okay to scrape LinkedIn? And, Copy.AI is using a partnership with LinkedIn on their actual API. So it's all in the up and up and up to use Copy.AI with LinkedIn. I think, two things that I'd love to add as we're sort of coming to a close on this rollout is, and I really want to call this out, Josh, is you actually took it your own initiative to jump into Copy.AI, see if you could figure this out and put this into Zap, and hope that this Build in Public episode inspires you to do the same thing. That's really the goal here. What we're really seeking to do is help people understand that you can go, there is an AI world beyond ChatGPT, and you don't have to wait for someone to invent a product that you then have to convince your CFO to sign off on. You can just go build it with a low-code, no-code tool like Copy.AI and Zapier. And of course, HubSpot is phenomenal to work with for all of you HubSpot CRM users out there. Really easy to work with their API. So getting call prep notes with HubSpot is really as simple as setting up that Copy.AI workflow and the zaps. We'd love in the comments, if you're actually trying to build this and you have questions or you run into blockers, post it and we'll come back around to it. We're obviously giving you a straightforward use case here, but we're always happy to give more step-by-step instructions where that can be helpful.
Good stuff. I'm fired up. And I mean, I gotta say, it was entirely self-sufficient. I built this out in 30 minutes. I kid you not, I literally built this out in 30 minutes. I went into Copy.AI. I used a prompt to generate the damn workflow. It was like that easy. And then it generated for me. And then really I spent probably 20 minutes I spent more time refining the prompt, which is like the most important part is the prompt engineering work. And that's all the stuff I've learned from you on like prompt engineering. And it's so valuable. So check out episode 2 if you're interested in prompt engineering work, because that's going to be a really good useful resource for you. But Brian, this was fun to get in the weeds and do this live. I was getting a little nervous. I was like, shoot, is it going to work? And it worked flawlessly because we built it right. It just I was a little nervous doing it live. So here we go.
For sure. Same. I think that's part of the fun of build in public is feels a little bit like you're going to skydive. And, we did it and we landed. We were okay. We had some fun. Hopefully everybody's taking some encouragement from this, that even when you know what you're doing or you don't know what you're doing, you can dive in and figure it out, and it can go pretty quickly.
Nailed it. Love it. All right. Thanks, Brian.
Cheers.
Cheers.